Mariette's on the move. What? Mariette's on the move. Again? Mariette's on the move.
Not anymore. I'm Mariette of Mariette's on the Move, and I'm finally setting roots back in sweet home Chicago. But if you're thinking about moving, I'm on it. I've moved 20 times in the last 24 years to 6 of America's top cities, and boy, do I have some stories for you. I'll be doing some on-air coaching and, of course, giving you my tips, tricks, and scams to avoid. This is the Moving Tips and Tricks podcast. Now let's get moving. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Mariette, the host of the Moving Tips and Tricks podcast. And one of the things that we do on this podcast is coaching. So I have a special guest with me today. Her name is Katie Jones. She lives outside of the Denver, Colorado area, and she's moving to Michigan. And so what we're going to do is just kind of go through some of her questions and kind of talk you through what a coaching session is like. So essentially, we get an idea about the situation. I don't know all the things for every single market in the country. I wish I did. But if there is something that I don't know how to answer, I'm going to tell Katie and I'll get back to her. If for the most part, we're just going to talk through the situation and see if we can come up with some solutions together. So Katie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mariette. Thanks for having me. I'm very, very excited for today. We definitely are looking forward to getting some tips on moving.
Yeah. Well, so you and your husband are moving, right? Do you have children?
We do. We have a son who is almost a year old as we are recording this.
Okay. So you are a certified financial coach in the certified Christian financial coach. Is that the title? Yeah, that's the title,
Certified
right?
Christian financial counselor. It's like the official phrase, but yes, that is a mouthful.
And your husband is a pastor, right? So you are moving into housing, right? Like you have something established?
Great question. So someone's at the entryway doorbell. Can you hear that doorbell?
This is real life, folks. This is what happens.
I'm like,
and what I love about what we just heard, so if that was faint, we heard somebody's at her doorbell because she's selling a stroller, because that's what you do when you move, is you sell things. So. Yes.
Yeah, we have been selling lots of things on Facebook Marketplace. It's been our best friend. We've actually made a decent amount of money, and it's been wonderful. But yes, definitely going towards all the moving costs, which is awesome. But back to your question, yes. So we are moving out to Michigan for a new pastoral position for my husband, and we will be in temporary housing out there that a family is providing for us, just a guest house of theirs, basically.
Oh, nice.
We will eventually, the goal is to buy a house. We have savings set aside for that and hope to buy something this summer. But the area that we're moving to is very rural, and the housing market can be very slow. The area also is known more as like a vacation area. So a lot of the houses are more like cabins and lake houses and things like that are more vacation homes versus a like full-time family home. So that makes it a little bit more challenging, and people tend to stay in the area who live there full-time, so they don't move very often. So housing can be challenging. So hopefully our temporary housing is quite temporary, but it could be longer, and the family we're staying with has graciously opened their doors for as long as we need. So that's where we're landing when we get out there.
So you're thinking 3 to 6 months?
Yes. If we could make it 3 months, that would be amazing. Like just 3 months. But we're waiting for the perfect home, as perfect as it can get, right? And that we're willing to wait a little bit longer if needed to find that place that we can stay in for a long time.
Yeah, the beauty about that, I call it a city proof of concept or a city POC. And sometimes I tell people to do a bake off as well. So like you're going to one side of town, and especially with vacation homes, they're very expensive sometimes. So, but you're coming from a much more expensive market. So it might actually be a pleasant surprise what expensive is in rural Michigan versus Denver, Colorado. So there's a leg up on that one. But what I will say is that a city POC is when you do spend longer than a week in an area and you get the benefit of driving through neighborhoods, you have money in the bank. So you're already prepared. Like if you need to put an offer in to get a house that you love right away, you have nothing to sell on the other end. So that is the beauty of the situation you're in.
Yes.
The tough part is that you're coming from a much bigger house and you're probably going to be in a smaller temporary house. So you're going to be living out of storage for a while.
Yeah, that's where we are getting kind of hung up on as far as like the small logistics of everything in knowing, we're going to be in this temporary house. It is furnished, so we won't have to unpack our furnishings. However,
Nice.
Yeah, we don't know how long we're going to be in this place. We, again, hope it's not going to be very long. But if it is something like 6 months, that means that we would be there through the summer, into the fall, and potentially into the winter. And so you kind of are like, well, what do I pack with me in my suitcase versus in the moving truck or in a pod or something like that, where it's packed away into storage. So we keep going back and forth on like what is the right course of action, as well as like what is the most cost-effective way of doing it, because we're trying to be really good stewards with it. The church has graciously given us a moving allowance. And at the same time, me as a financial counselor, I think about the numbers all the time. And I'm like, how can we make it like really, how can we do this frugally and just be really wise? And I want to evaluate everything. But at the same time, I'm like, I've never done a big move like this before. The last time I did something like this was moving out here to Colorado for college. And I only brought like my clothes, right? And then I bought them here because I didn't have anything else yet. So there's a lot.
It's a lot. Well, so let's take a step back. So the house that you're moving into, how big is it?
I think it's a few bedrooms. I actually don't remember off the top of my head. It definitely has more than 2 bedrooms, because that was one of the appeals of it for us, was there'd be a bedroom for my husband and I, and then for our son, and then something that I could hopefully work out of while we're transitioning. So yeah, that's another, last night we were even talking about it. I'm like, do I make sure that I have all of my podcasting gear and computer set up and all this stuff, because I have to keep working myself. So I'm like, oh my gosh, but I'm not, I have a huge desk. This desk is wonderful. I love my desk, but I'm like, this can't just come into our car. This has to be packed in the truck. So,
so how many cars do you have?
We have 2 cars.
Okay. And okay, so you told me prior that you did talk to a moving company. Did you just talk to one, or how many did you talk to?
Yes, so far we have talked to one officially. So I've been looking online at some others, but I thought I would chat with you first before I go any further. But yeah, one, and I just used one of the big names. It's Mayflower, I think is the name. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, so one of the things that I would recommend is take your zip code and Google moving companies and go to a local moving company. So bypass the ads and go into, 3 or 4 of them. And the reason you do that is if you go to a broker site where you can get, multiple estimates at one time, what they do is a couple of things. One, it's open for scammers, right? So they're very sophisticated these days. They're going to tell you what you want to hear, give you the date that you need. Sometimes they ask for a deposit. Never pay for a deposit ever. That is a huge red flag for a scam. But what you want them to do is I would call 3 more moving companies if this is the route you want to go. So I would go 3 more moving companies, and I would say, you want to go and you want to look and make sure that they have a physical location, right? You want to look at the testimonies, and then you want to take, maybe pick 1 or 2 that you call and talk to them and kind of get a good sense for. And you want to go into the website, protectyourmove.gov. And there is a moving database, like a mover's database in there. And that's where you can see if they have any complaints against them. So you can even do that with the Mayflower company that you called. Some of those bigger companies, they're a lot less agile. And what happens with a bigger company like that, and they're not bad, I've used them myself, but you have to share a load, and you don't necessarily get a good range of like when your stuff is going to get out there. It used to be that they had 6 weeks to get it to you. And because you're going from Denver to Michigan, that's several states that they have to cross. Because not a lot of people are moving right now,
There's a lot of stuff going on in the, economy and in the world. And so people, one, there's very little inventory right now. And two, people are just kind of holding tight right now to see what happens. And so when that happens, you sometimes have to wait for them to fill up the semi with maybe one or two other families before they'll drive their stuff out to you.
Interesting.
So so it's a lot. So if you go to those 3 other moving companies, have them come and walk your house and do an on-site assessment. And when they're doing that, tell them what you think you're going to sell and what you're not going to sell, so they can get a good understanding of how much stuff you have. There's a couple reasons for doing that. One, they will be able to tell you, okay, this is probably going to go on a 26-foot truck. This is going to go on a 30-foot truck. And they'll give you kind of an estimate of how many pounds you have. Even if you do a DIY move and you end up renting a truck and a pod, now you know exactly how much stuff that you have. And they're giving you exactly what you need to estimate, because the pod type companies, so there's like Pods, there's U-Pack, there's 1-800-PACK-RAT, there's like, the top 5 of them out there. They're notorious for underestimating how many pods you need. And so those pods are expensive and it costs a lot of money to store them. So what I would almost recommend, especially in your situation, because you don't know exactly how long you're going to have, I would check with the moving companies, because what you can do is almost a hybrid. So you have 2 cars. So you and your husband could rent, depending on how comfortable each of you is driving the moving truck itself, and then have pull a car behind you, and then have somebody drive in the second car with the baby. Mm-hmm. So what you would put in that moving truck is everything that you need physically to live for 6 months, right? So this is, the baby's crib, pack and plays, all the toys, your clothes, their clothes. Even if you have to pare down your clothes for several seasons, I would almost have that local moving company, because they have a whole network of, so for instance, for my move in Charlotte, from Charlotte to Indianapolis, when I moved, my guy had a 26-foot truck. And it was packed to the brim. I had a 3-bedroom house with a 2-car garage. And there was like nothing else we were fitting into this truck. But what I had them do is I had all of the stuff that I was going to be putting in my apartment at the front of the truck. And the second half of the stuff in the truck was going into storage. So I had them take it directly to a climate controlled U-Haul storage facility. And I got 2 storage units. I think it cost me about $250 a month, but I didn't have a baby. I didn't have like all of that other stuff. And it was only me, right? So with you guys, you can make it almost an adventure and, have a move with you guys doing kind of this hybrid. So it also would cost you less money, because you're going to have less poundage, but they can still help you pack your U-Haul, like your actual Ryder truck or whatever, U-Haul truck, whatever you end up renting. So they can still help you pack that, but they're also packing their truck. And at that moment, you can kind of figure out what needs to go where. And then you take it directly to a storage place versus, like I said, you can definitely do pods. Pods is an option as well. And they can pack it. You can get a local crew to actually pack the pod and pack yours. But pods is likely going to be more expensive long-term to actually store it.
We did find out that Pods does not go to this very rural town.
That is another thing.
I did consider it, because since we are moving somewhere temporarily, obviously storing our stuff is a big question. Yeah. When I did talk to this gentleman from Mayflower, he told me offhand, we have the full quote now, but even just on the call, he was like, even for 30 days of storage, he's like, the minimum is going to be around like $4,000 because of all of the upfront fees first. And then he said on an ongoing basis, it'll probably be like $1,000 to $1,500 per month. So it's basically like rent. And
it's literally
like,
rent.
Oh my gosh, like we're not going to be paying rent, obviously, while we're living at someone else's house, but it would be nice not to have to pay rent at all. Yeah. So that was a big thing.
And you have no access. So this is always a big thing for me. When you rent a U-Haul, I'm using U-Haul as like Kleenex. When you rent a storage place or a storage, like a 10 by, you would probably be able to get away with a 10 by 20 and one smaller one if you have 3 bedrooms worth of stuff, but they're going to pack it all in. If you got two 10 by 20 storage units, you're going to have access to your things if you need to go back and forth. So you would only have to pack clothes for 1 or 2 seasons. You wouldn't have to pack it for the 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
The beauty of that is that you have access, and there's always going to be things that you're like your vacuum or something that you're like, holy cow, I totally forgot. Like why did I not think I'm going to need that? But I need that. So you're going to have the access, but you're also not going to be paying $1,000, $1,500 a month. You're probably going to be paying $250 to $300 a month max for if you had almost your whole house in there. Because it sounds like you are going to be able to get rid of a lot of furniture and a lot of your stuff. But the beauty too about one of those storage facilities, and I don't have affiliations with any of these companies at all. So just to put that out there for everybody, I literally have just done this so many times that that's kind of my experience, but they're on site when you're moving in. And if you need another, like I would go to a rental facility that has multiple units available, like not just one, because if you need an extra one. So what happened with me is I had a 10 by 20, but I really wanted to have access to all my stuff. And I had these, I still love them. I'm going to have to take a picture of them. I've moved them from place to place to place. I have these gigantic egg chairs from Pier 1 Imports, which Pier 1 is not even around anymore. So I couldn't even, like, I'm going to have to reweave them because they're now falling apart.
Oh no.
But I love them so, so much that I put them in the unit and I wasn't able to like really access anything else. So I got a second smaller unit that I put a bunch of the stuff that I needed to access, like my Christmas stuff and things like that, that I knew because I moved in October and I knew that I was going to have everything over Christmas. So
Yeah.
that's an option for you. I mean, I love the idea of you guys getting a smaller, like a 20-foot truck that you put all of your stuff, your baby stuff, you know, pots and like your favorite pots, pans and stuff like that, toiletries, all that stuff, even plants. I mean, I love my plants. You can't put a plant on a moving truck, but you can put it on a rental truck and towing your car and then having one of you drive behind it with the baby because you're not going to have room for the baby. The rental trucks are typically 2-seaters.
Yeah. When we've done our smaller moves just across town, we've always done like a U-Haul or something. And that's moving from very small places to, I mean, our last place we moved from was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and it was like 1,100 square feet. And so it was much smaller than this.
Do you have a truck to pull a bigger trailer on? Because they have like the 16-foot, 20-foot trailer. Yeah. I will say that like my dad is a really good driver. He's probably not going to listen to this, but I was terrified because we drove through these like unbelievably scary storms he's got like a Yukon or something like that. And we pulled this like 16-foot trailer behind it when I was coming from Indianapolis. And we were all over the road. Like I felt like it was like the scariest thing ever. So to me, that was, you know, not a great experience. But some people, I mean, if you're driving through like normal weather, it's, you know, it's no big deal. But
So I do have a question, and I don't know if you have any experience with this, but, you know, I was talking with some of my girlfriends at dinner the other night, and I was telling them kind of about all of our dealings with trying to figure out moving. And a friend of mine had mentioned that one of the things she wishes that she had done when they had moved was purchase their own shipping container, have it dropped off, fill it up, and then have a trucking company then go and move, like actually deliver that shipping container to their new place. The reason this sounds kind of appealing is, again, the idea of having access potentially to it ourselves. And then even the idea of one, either keeping the shipping container and having it for storage ourselves or selling it on the back end and recouping some of that money that we would have spent on the shipping container in the first place. And I looked it up. It looks like shipping containers can be anywhere from like 2,000 to 5,000, depending on if they're used and obviously the size and things like that. So I don't know. It was definitely like an intriguing option and something that I'm like, maybe we'll look into this. But there is a little bit more like logistics to figure out. Yeah. And like, just like, you know, we live in a cul-de-sac right now. And I'm like, where would they put the shipping container? And
well, even on the other end, like if your
yeah,
friends that are so graciously allowing you to rent, like, I don't know that they'd want that in their backyard either. But who knows? I mean, maybe they would think that's a neat idea.
Yeah. So there's just a few more like logistics of it. I think since it is a rural area, I know that we'd probably be able to find someone who has land and is just like, you know, here, put the shipping container here. And so my friend, she lives on kind of like a homestead property with acreage, and they decided to get a shipping container because they had some storage stuff in a local storage place, and they were paying something like $400 a month for the storage unit. And they're like, well, why don't we buy a shipping container for a couple $1,000s, and then we have it and we can just store stuff in there, and it's free after that for us. So I was like, that's such an interesting idea. I never would have considered that at all, but I don't know.
Are you on the other end? Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds really interesting. On the other end of it, the houses that you are looking at, are you going to stay in kind of that rural area? Because you could always repurpose it for a greenhouse or for livestock, or I mean, I've seen that on Homestead Rescue before.
Yeah, that is also part of it. It's like, okay, we could use it as some kind of a shed, storage, just, I mean, even if it's like keeping bikes in or something like that, right? It's like, it could be an extra garage kind of unit in a sense. I mean, there's so many, cool ideas that people have turned shipping containers into. We actually saw a house the other day that they built like 2 shipping containers on the end of their houses. And it's like, they were like little garages there, but it like was a part of the house. It was so interesting. Cool. And I'm like, well, that's kind of intriguing. I'm like, what if we bought one of those and built it into our house? Like, wow.
Do you have any experience with that? Because I know I like to take on projects. I still haven't built the garden box that I have been talking about building, that's sitting in a box on my patio. But no, that is a really interesting idea. And the other side of it is, if you do have 3 moving companies come and do a survey of your home, they can tell you exactly the size you'd need. You just don't tell them that we're doing that. Exactly. Right. You're like, okay, what size truck are you going to use? What size, if I needed to buy a DIY, what would that look like? I mean, that's a way for them, because they're the experts, and you're going to need a local moving company anyway to move everything into it. Right. So that's a way to kind of see how they would do it. But
and I never even actually thought about the idea of just hiring a company to fill the containers or fill a pod or fill something like that, because I always kind of assumed that if we did do the pod or a shipping container, then we would have to move it all in. And we have decent sized furniture these days. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that sounds exhausting.
Yeah.
And it's worked out.
Do it all
My
the time.
husband's a youth pastor, so we have a fleet of teenagers who love helping with that kind of stuff. So it's definitely possible, but at the same time, I'm like, it would be nice to have people who are experienced.
So this is the thing, is that there's a couple different insurance companies that you can work with to insure your stuff.
Oh yeah.
But there is no, like, if you can hire some teenagers and they're very careful, great. There's also this element of like Tetris that moving company like professionals do that I don't know how they do it. It's brilliant to watch. Yeah. But they can stuff things in a way that like most people can't, because on the other side of it, when you do get this house, you can hire another local crew to come undo, because that's what would happen if you hired a moving company like Mayflower. They have one crew on the front end and they have a different crew on the back end receiving. So in the same sense, so to give you an example, I'm building a podcast studio in my garage. And so yesterday morning, in fact, I had a local crew that I've used in the past, Thompson Moving and Storage. They're fantastic. They sent 3 guys over. And because I still had all the stuff in my garage from my move, there was still like some furniture and things that are going to go into the podcasting studio. And then I had a bunch of stuff on my patio. It took them about an hour on the front end to load everything in. And they brought a really irrationally oversized truck, unfortunately, but they brought it to the storage unit for me and packed a 10 by 15 storage unit, kind of almost to the brim, basically. But that cost me $512. So if you think from a local perspective, that's kind of what it would cost. It would be very similar for them to do that, packing it in. If you consider, it's typically like the least amount of time it's taken for somebody to pack up a truck of my stuff is probably 4 hours. But I had a lot of stuff staged and pulled into the garage. So it was very easy for them. On the back end, it could take anywhere from 6 to 9 hours, depending on how well organized you are. So when you're hiring that local crew, they work by the hour is typically what they do. So keep that in mind if they are filling the pod for you and it doesn't have to move everywhere, that you've got logistically a couple different things you have to consider. The crew putting stuff in the truck, and then, whoever's picking up the truck and moving it to whatever storage unit. And then if they have a crew on the back end, either, dropping that truck off or the trailer off, or meeting you at a storage unit place. I mean, for me, the container does sound great, but if you have to stay in that temporary place for longer, it's going to be really hard to access anything within it.
Mm-hmm.
But it is an option if you guys think that you're going to find a place in 3 months and, all your stuff would be there ready to go. You would just want to look at the permits and the local city ordinances and see what they allow and what they don't allow.
That's a good point as far as permits too. So,
yeah. But there are 5 insurance moving providers. I would even consider, if you're DIYing your move, U-Haul has a company that if you were to get one of their trucks, eMove insurance, I think it is, but they would insure your whole move. If you have renter's insurance right now or homeowner's insurance right now, you can call and see if you can get a rider on that. Cause I know State Farm, Allstate, USAA, Geico, those guys all will do some sort of they'll cover losses per se, but they're not necessarily going to cost they'll replace something if it's damaged. They're not going to pay to fix something per se. Baker International is one. They kind of do a big umbrella type thing, but they will actually replace loss. The other thing you have to think about too is from a catastrophic event perspective, if there is tornadoes or something that, you're driving through, that's everything you own on the truck. You want to have some sort of insurance outside of, just what your movers are offering, because it is a big move. It's typically not that expensive, but the movers themselves, there's 2 different types of moving. There's binding and non-binding. So binding or valuation insurance, they have total loss versus full replacement, right? So there's a huge difference, and that's kind of how the moving companies insure you. So it's usually 60 cents per pound is kind of the going rate. So if you think about it, if you have 10,000 pounds worth of stuff, that's all the money you're getting to replace everything on that truck, right? So you want to think about those things and have some sort of rider to complement what you're getting just in case. And if you're okay and the stuff that you have, you don't really care and could probably get donations or something like that, then, it's a risk that you can take. But I see not enough people getting insurance and then, kicking themselves later if something does happen.
Yeah.
So something to consider.
Yeah. No, that'd be scary, especially there was a few weeks ago, there were all those tornadoes and craziness in the Midwest that was happening. So it's definitely very real. I saw trucks tipping over on the news,
Yeah, it's scary stuff. But I think for the most part, if you're aware and you stop at hotels and watch the radar, I think so many people take risks that I just don't understand. But I'm very risk averse. That's more, that's for me. So So hopefully this has been helpful. I know we're coming up on a half hour. I want to be respectful of your time.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions that you have?
No, this has been really helpful. I mean, just a lot of little things that I'm oh, I never even thought of this. And even just the idea of hiring a crew to help pack even a pod or a shipping container or something like that. If we do the kind of DIY version of it, I think maybe the last thing I'd love to I don't even know what to ask about it, but as far as have you ever heard of anyone negotiating rates for the quotes they've received for moving? So, I mean, we did receive a quote for moving with Mayflower. I don't know that we will go with them just because, first off, it was very large. I mean, I knew it was going to be expensive with them, but I wanted to kind of you just get the idea of what size do they expect, what are they considering, all this stuff. And so I was just wanted to kind of get the ball rolling with that. But it was just so large, and I wasn't sure, like, is there room for negotiating with moving companies as far as like the rates and things like that? Do you know?
Not typically. No, unfortunately not. But that's why I tell you to get 3 other quotes and have them physically come and did they come and survey the house?
We did like a virtual one. So I did like it was like a Zoom kind of thing, and walked through the house and showed them every little thing, and they were asking questions, and it felt pretty thorough to me. So yeah.
And that's just the same. I mean, they started doing that over the pandemic, so I can definitely see that. I would have 2 or 3 other moving companies. I would go local. Like I said, the local companies have a little bit more room, and they might be able to negotiate. So what happens when you have like a big Mayflower company, they broker it out. So they're not typically like, it's brokered out to a different moving person who owns like a local truck. And then they bid it out and have a local crew with them typically. So they have to cover their gross profit and then the other trucker's gross profit. And what they build into it is like their gas, their insurance, if something, happens. So that's where you're typically going to pay a little bit more for the Mayflowers, the Allieds, the bigger companies. The smaller companies, the locally owned companies, they have a little bit more room, and typically they will take your stuff directly to you instead of having a couple different loads that they have to do. And so you gain a little bit of traction there. And then on the other side of it, they have a whole network of local movers that they typically tap into, so they can get another load on the way back to wherever it is that they came from, which covers the cost of you having to pay round trip. Because if the Mayflowers of the world don't have a round trip to come back to, you're paying that money. You're paying for both sides of their trip instead of just your one side. So you can get those 2 or 3 other bids and then throw out the highest and the lowest and pick the 2 in the middle. And then I would go, make sure you go to FMCSA's website. So Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, that's the protectyourmove.gov. I would do that before you pick one and see if there's any complaints against them, because that's where they're going to be. And it doesn't matter if it's the Mayflowers or the bigger ones of the world, because they work with brokers. So you want to make sure that you're looking at whatever local company would actually be doing the move for you.
Yep. Okay. I actually do have one last small question.
Yeah.
So we have a glass tabletop. It's like our dining room table is a glass thing. We inherited it. It's wonderful. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It is heavy and obviously fragile when moving. I do see on the quote, they have a specific box here that says crating items.
Yes.
So they're putting it in a crate. So now
$700 or $1,000 right there.
It's interesting. It doesn't actually say the specific price for it, but I know for sure like that's got to be a larger amount. But now I'm kind of thinking, okay, if we do the kind of more DIY version, do you have any tips on like moving something fragile like that?
Yeah. So I have a 7x4 beautiful mirror that I have taken with me for 20 years everywhere. And I've had it crated, and I've also done the DIY side of it. So what we do is you can go to Home Depot or Lowe's and buy moving blankets. So you wrap it in a moving blanket, and then you take probably like 4 wardrobe boxes and cut them up. And so you almost sandwich it in between the moving boxes, and then you wrap that. They have like a saran wrap, like an oversized saran wrap type roll that they sell. It's worth every single penny, especially if you have like loose things that you need to wrap. So you would take, so you've got your glass. If you want to, if you have like, not 2x4s, but some sort of wood or something to like sandwich it in between, you can do that as well. And then put the moving blankets and then put the boxes around it and wrap it. That's essentially what they're doing when they crate it. It's going to be, depending on the size, is it round?
No, it is actually roughly 7x4. It's like a very similar size.
Yeah. So that's exactly what they're going to do from a crating perspective. It just might be enclosed in wood. Like I've taken a couple pieces of just like, I can't remember. It's like it's just the thin wood strips just to have something to like absorb any shock. But that's what I do. I mean, I stopped crating it years ago just for that reason.
Cool. So, no, that's a great tip, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I do that. That's perfect. So
yeah,
cool.
I know it's a pain in the butt, but I mean, I guarantee 1,000 of that, what you just got a quote for is probably the crating.
I can imagine. Yep.
It's worth it. And if the glass is thick enough, it's probably not going to break, but you just want to make sure that you have every, ounce of protection you can. And a lot of that is shock absorbing. So,
Yep. Cool. That's great.
Awesome.
That's a great tip. Thank you.
Good. You're welcome. Well, thank you so much for coaching with me. I look forward to hearing how the move goes.
Yeah. Thank you, Mariette. This is wonderful. I will definitely keep you updated.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on today's tips and tricks. Jump on decidingtomove.com to apply for a free on-air coaching session or join the newsletter to get your copy of the Moving for Smarties workbook. Oh, and the legal stuff. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. I'm a certified coach, not a licensed therapist, and this is not meant to replace the professional advice of a physician, psychotherapist, or real estate agent. I do not own a moving company or work for the governing agencies transporting home goods, which means Mariette's on the Move LLC is not responsible for anything that happens during your move. This is solely my perspective based on my research and my own experience and training. So, move at your own risk. Bye for now.